Hi, this is Nathan Ford with Mike Mason here for GCU CST-256 with Professor Mark Reha. Gonna give a quick demo of our app and walk through what we worked on this semester and kind of touch on the code a little bit. Not too much, otherwise we'd be here for a couple of hours. But here's our application, hosted currently on Heroku with a database in AWS. There were some problems when working with the databases through the Heroku, such as JawsDB and ClearDB. We weren't actually able to update information in the database. We were getting errors where we didn't have the authorization to do so. So we ended up putting it on AWS just so that way we could make ourselves admin so we could demonstrate those functionalities. So here we'll do a quick registration. Test, and test. I'll leave the rest blank because I'll probably end up, I'll delete this account here in a second just so that way I can demonstrate that feature. But on a successful registration, it leads you back here. If you don't put anything in, you'll notice all these little things that say, please fill out this field, you know, say that the passwords need a match, etc., etc. So from here, if I just don't put anything, we still get those data validations. If I put in the wrong password or even the wrong email, then it'll just tell me login failed. So from here, if I put in the correct email and password, I forget what I actually did my password as. Oh, that's right. All right. So from here, this takes us to our actual profile page where we have all of our information laid out, my display name, my full name, email, et cetera, where I'm from, with the little profile picture. So if I wanted to go ahead and add a job experience, I can go here, fill out the company name and the job title as well. I can also change the start date. Now, one bug that we do have that we'll probably cover a little extensively in, or a little more extensively in final presentation is you can't actually check these boxes and add these. You get some error kicked back to you that it just doesn't work. So for now, I'll just leave those, change the start date, and go ahead and add it. We have here that it is added, and we have the start year to current, and that's again because of that bug. If I want to update it, then I can update it to some fancy title, and I get that title as well as delete it. Now education, pretty much the same thing, just different forms. So I'll just go ahead and speed through this one just to show the functionality of it. So we have that you can add it and update it and delete it. Same thing with skills. The only difference with skills is we don't actually have an update button. We figured it was a simple enough thing. You know, it's one text field. It's not extensive. So we're just going to do add and delete. If the user wants to update it, say they don't like that they have the ASDF skill, they can just delete it and then go and add a new QWER skill or whatever they wanted to do. So that's how we chose to do that one. Update password. Just come in here, fill out old password and new password, click update. And if I want to go test out that my new password works, I can just do a quick new login. And new password does work. Update this information. And this will be the last thing I show for the profile just for time's sake. There's a lot of stuff that we can be going on here. And so that does update the information. And so from there, we'll actually move on to something else because we could probably sit here all day on this. So we have our administration roles. Now, this shows pretty much just about everybody who isn't us, which is one thing that we probably would change in the future. I know this ain't the final presentation, but I would want to keep this at only showing users who are below your admin level. So I would want to make this so that way Mike Mason doesn't show up here since we are both master admins. But we can actually change administration. So if I want to make test a moderator, I can go in, refresh the page, and he actually is a moderator. If I want to suspend him, then I can do so. He's no longer able to log in. You've been suspended and therefore can't access. Going back, if I want to delete his account entirely, I can just delete it and it's gone for good. one thing is he's not actually banned. So if test@test.com wanted to go back in, create an account, he could do so. A future implementation, I might actually have that be there be a ban button there as well. But for now, that's what we got. Here's our groups. We can actually add images to the groups now. Is some new functionality that we worked on for this milestone. If I want to add a group, then I can do so. Choose some image. I'll just do a funny little image that I got there. This lands us on our My Groups page. So from here, we can look at the list of members. We can update it if we wanted to. And so the image does go away on an update. That's one, again, that's some problem that we're going to need. So you would need to choose the same image again. Let's see if this works. Images was kind of giving us a problem. There it is. Yeah. So you would need to actually still continue on with that, or you can just delete it entirely. So from browse groups, if I wanted to join this, then I could join it, and it'll show me up. It'll show up here in the joined groups. And then if I wanted to leave it, then we get this error, but we have noticed that it still actually does leave the group. So we're not quite sure where that error is actually coming from, but it does do a successful leaving of the group. So if I wanted to look at members here, then I have Michael Mason, all of his information. I can view his profile and see that he's an alien. Again, that's another problem with this. Not so much that it's a bug, but something we need to change is I don't actually own this group. Michael Mason does, yet I'm still able to remove him here. That's kind of a problem. So if I did that, then obviously you wouldn't want to remove the group admin from their own group. So, I guess it doesn't work, but so there's a new bug. Always got to love demos, finding new bugs and everything. So off to the job postings, we have, this is a new job and some description. We can add that. Now, if this is our job posting, then we can actually go in here, edit this to whatever we want, and it'll show up here. This date right here is the actual date that it was posted. So even though we update it, like if it was tomorrow and I was demonstrating this job, then this would still stay as whatever 4/27 is. I think it's April, not sure. And then if I want to delete it, I can delete it. If I want to log out, then log out.
Nate, I think you should clarify that you're accustomed to military time. So 4/27 is not familiar to you.
Yeah, I don't know what month it is. I know it's the 4th month. That's it. I always got to count on my fingers. So moving on to the code a little bit, Mike, I think I kind of went a little overboard on the presentation. If you want to kind of cover some of the new stuff that we added.
Sure. Just need control of your screen. Yeah, okay, thanks.
There you go. You got it.
Yeah. So I don't remember if there was a code walkthrough necessary for this last milestone. I know there's not for the project presentation. So instead of going in depth on anything, I will say that I will just kind of go over the project structure and kind of some things that you want to be aware of, some kind of more advanced features. Obviously, there's the HTTP folder in the, package in the app folder. The app folder is kind of where Laravel expects you to keep all of your source code, and it's got your controllers. And here is where so you'll see all of our controllers here. But we also have middleware, which is where it keeps all of its middleware, and I believe where we implemented our own middleware. So this redirect if unauthenticated is where I put the middleware for our custom security implementation. And then of course we had to register that in the kernel. So that's HTTP. We have of course, following the MVC framework model, no pun intended there. We actually have a models folder where we keep all of our models, and they are not eloquent models. So there's actually a little bit of a problem with using your own models in Laravel when you're trying to leverage their authentication framework. And it's something that I've had to come up with a workaround in another project. But we'd have to go through some extra steps to make sure that this user model is authenticatable, and we'd have to add our own user provider and specify a drop and stuff I won't go into. Providers is where we kind of, we added several providers, and I grouped these together by feature. So we made certain business and data services singletons where it was necessary. We have pretty much broken down by feature. So some of these aren't ours, obviously, but like admin service, affinity group service, anywhere where we have a quote unquote service, any other services, or even facades or anything like that, or any configuration stuff, related stuff, we have to put in these service providers, or we did anyway. Moving on to actual services, the actual services, there's obviously business and data. One thing I will mention that I'm not going to cover in the final presentation is the ORM-like framework that I created over the semester. Centers around the data service, which is obviously a data service has the CRUD operations around it, but there are a number of private abstract functions that a subclass of the data service must implement to specify how the models relate to their corresponding tables. So a couple of these functions I'll go ahead and point out really quick are, specifying the primary key, the entity that's used, the primary entity that's used, and then specifying, or initializing a data map that's passed in. And so this is where you relate all of your properties and things to the table that it belongs to. Now, I think in this case, Nate or I can't remember, maybe it was me, actually handwrote these in, but I took the extra step to actually implement public properties from the model, because we're bringing in the model already. Each model will have a public constant that we can just, so if I wanted to say, for example, let's see, what is it? This is for a employment history item model or history model. I might go ::, and then prop underscore, and then you can see a list of properties I can choose from to map to this particular field. I'm not going to, but you get the gist. Let's see, what's next? Our utilities is just kind of a catch-all here. Oh, Nate's REST folder is where we've decided to put specifically REST-related services and data services here. And like I said, utilities is kind of a catch-all. And then obviously everything else is, for the most part, is Laravel's configuration files, the public folder, resources, and so on. So I think that explains kind of our whole package structure. Oh, and finally, we have our own exceptions listed in this folder. But I think that covers pretty much everything in terms of the package layout. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers what we worked on this semester. One thing I will say is, there were some things that we never actually got to that we wanted to play around with. Some of them was just because we decided it wasn't worth it. Some of them was because we never had time. For example, I know we wanted to work a little bit more with the database using alerts, and I can't think of the name of the other feature we were wanting to do. But there were some features that we never actually got around to getting to implement. One of which we'll kind of cover a little bit more in the final project was the messaging service. We wanted to go a little bit more into Ajax with some of the stuff. We never got around to doing Ajax. But I think at the end of the day, we're pretty happy with how it ended up, and learned a lot from doing it. So.
Yep. Yeah, one thing I will note is maybe in future Laravel classes, I know that we've talked a little bit about using debuggers and things, but there are other debugging tools that are available that you can bring in as a third-party package, such as Laravel Telescope and Laravel's implementation of debug bar, the PHP debug bar, I think it's called, which really assist with all of the debugging stuff. Was really fun to use on other projects. So anyway.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I think we pretty much covered it all, unless Mike has more.
No, I think that's about it. Thank you, Professor, for your time, and we'll see you in the final project presentation mode.
All righty, let me get control back here and